the work of listening to another person is a deep beginning of morality. Well, why did I say that? I never heard anybody put it that way. Perhaps other people have. And I explore that by an experiment which I often tried without even realizing at the beginning the huge ethical significance of it. Experiment which many of you have heard of and which many counselors use, but not with this particular aim, which is to study just the work of listening to the other person. And that experiment is that when two people passionately disagree on some very serious question, in this case in the book I give the example of the question of abortion, which is one of the most intractable questions of our time, because both sides have such, when they're quieted down, most sides have such strong arguments. And so these two people come up in front of the class and they're given the direction. You, the first person, call her number one. Number one, you state your view about abortion. In this case it was abortion, partial birth abortion. And you state it succinctly. Then number two, you can respond to that person with your view, but only after you have summed up her view in such a way that she is willing to say, that is an accurate statement of my view, and you mustn't fudge it. In other words, the second person has to really be accurate, and the first person has to be merciless and say that you left out this, or that isn't it. And so I, as the moderator, I take that role. I say, the first person says X, and the second person says, well, you said this. And she says, okay, that's close enough. And I say, no, that isn't close enough. Try again, and try again, and try again. And that goes on back and forth. The second person then is free to state her view. In this case, it's two women. And the first one can only respond after she has summarized that question to the point that number two says that's a fair statement. Clear? That goes back and forth. Now, in order to do that, people say, okay, I can do that. But people get very surprised at how hard that is, because they discover that they're not able to listen to as much as they thought. They're listening to their own thoughts. About 2/3 of the time, it's their own mind that they're listening to, or they're waiting for the person to catch their breath so they can come in and put their point across, or so they can contend. They're waiting to get it, to win. And so in order to listen like that, they discover that you have to step back from your own mind. You have to step back from your own opinions. You have to create a space in yourself, in your mind, in your heart, an opening to let the other person in. It doesn't mean you have to agree with the other person. Not at all. You don't have to. It's a question simply of letting them in. Like you entertain a guest. You let the guest into your house. You should give them tea and cake and whatever, and you say goodbye. You don't take them upstairs. You don't do anything. You just let them in and listen. And you let this person into your mind, their views into your mind. And that's the beginning of morality. It's the beginning of what way in the distance would be the capacity to love. Because in order to listen like that, you have to step back from your ego. You have to step back from your opinions, which we always identify with so much, and we're willing to kill the person who disagrees with us. And that goes back and forth. And the people who try this experiment, people who try this experiment, they'd end, I've seen it many times, they still disagree. That's not the point, but they go out practically arm in arm because they've discovered the other person is a human being. And what they disagree with is the idea, is the opinion of the other person, not the other person's being. Whereas now, when we have so much disagreement, it becomes almost murder. People who disagree, they're denying your being. They want to kill you sometimes, just in that moment. There's such anger. There's such egoistic attachment to our own thoughts.